Welcome back to the Hip Hop Report. My name is Rambo Hustle, and today is Friday. So today we're discussing new music. And what came out? Marlon Craft. Coming out of New York. First time I heard him was in his breakout single, New York Baby. Recently on the Radar Freestyle. One of the most popular and new platforms today as far as hip hop, as far as artists, as far as bars. And, the only white rapper in that whole shit. But he dropped a new album today. The Internet Killed the Neighborhood. The project is 13 songs long, and it features nobody. Marlon Craft, in this day and age when everyone's trying to validate their own name, their music, their brand, their sound through other people's names and basically piggyback off the buzz and popularity of other artists, it's where honestly Marlon has the buzz to invest into features. He has a notoriety and is known well enough to get collaborations, and I'm sure he has those. However, on The Internet Killed the Neighborhood, he chooses to bypass all of these assets, all of these benefits and perks of his right now buzz to give you a full project, 13 songs with no features, where he handles not just the bars but also the melodies, carrying a very laid back, smooth and vocal performance and a lot of these hooks that is melodic, but he doesn't try to be a singer. He doesn't try to be a crooner. He just carries the note as he should to fit the landscape and the soundscape of what he's being given as far as production-wise. Now, as far as the sound of this album, it stays true to his jazz background. He comes from a jazz and musical family, and then thus, a lot of the records that you hear are very reminiscent of, dare I say, not like his lyrical ability isn't Kendrick, but the sound of this project sounds a lot like what I remember Section 80 sounding. It wasn't big musically, it wasn't in your face musically, it was smooth, textured, it had a feeling, it had a lot of emotion, and I think when you listen to this project, you're not gonna get a bunch of records that are, hard-hitting 808s or none of that. This is authentic boom bap, hip-hop essence music, and you get records like Sedative, you get the most dynamic and in-your-face records, Unapologetic, which just matches really the title of the record. That was one of the singles that he rolled out, as well as Analog Man. These two are very different, but as Marlon Craft has always done, he's always been very methodical in not just his sound selection, but also giving you something that is true to the essence of hip-hop, but not boring, not too slow. It's interesting enough to sit back and listen to it, but also you can vibe to it when you're driving or whatever the case may be. I think the project carries a nice rhythm with it, and nothing seems forced, nothing seems overplayed, and it seems like he's really trying to certify and establish his footing within hip-hop as not just a great lyrical artist, but also somebody that carries the culture and the sound of hip-hop with respect and authenticity. Now, some of the records I really loved on this was If I Loved Me, Most Days, which honestly his vocals on Most Days, when it first came on, I thought, oh, maybe this is a feature that's not listed, but no, it was him, and it was him, and I was impressed because it sounded so different. Shout out to the engineers, and shout out to him taking that risk and actually being able to manipulate his sound and his vocals to really give us something considerably different. I really also look around. But honestly, this is not a record that you're going to go in and say, oh, this is the standout record, or this is the one that really hit me. I think in this project, he discusses a lot of the topics that we're familiar with as far as hip-hop in regards to where the industry's been, what's happening with the internet, obviously as it shows in the title, but he voices his displeasures with how people have transitioned from, a lot of the things that J. Cole said. I think he echoes these in this project, maybe not in the same way, because he even has a line on here where he discusses how, criticism online and from people that he doesn't know don't affect him. He's not affected by those criticisms because he knows that at the end of the day, he's staying true to himself and he's staying true to his sound and his music and the things that he wants to put out into the world. That's advice Cole can definitely take. Nonetheless, outside of that, he also voices his displeasures with the internet and what it's done to the culture, what it's done to the sound, what it's done to hip hop in general, and how it's watered down the industry, not just with people's opinions, opinion, but also with too many artists doing too many things and not staying true to the sound of hip hop. I think this project as a whole shows a great ceiling for Marlon Craft. I think the one thing where Marlon really hurts and is affected by is his he almost does what Cole does, as far as like he's not gonna try to dress like a star, and he's not going to present himself like a star, and he's got this like, I'm not gonna shave because I want you to overlook my image and listen to my music. Personally, I admire that. I don't know if that is really treating your potential and your opportunity to be successful in music with the respect it deserves. At the end of the day, you should be somebody that wants to present themselves as a potential star. Now, a star doesn't have to sacrifice what they talk about or their sound or their authenticity to just look like they're upkept and look like they're, taking care of themselves. I just feel like sometimes a lot of these artists, for whatever reason, choose the long way home. They want to make it harder on themselves. So it's like, okay, like I'm not going to get beats from like top-notch producers. I'm not going to like dress like I give a shit about my image. I'm just going to show up in sweatpants and a hoodie, and then I'm just going to show how underground and how hip-hop I am by not trying to look sharp and look presentable. I think maybe, for me also, I do kind of feel like there's a play with white rappers where they try to downplay, their image to again, shed light on their talent. And so people will consume and respect them for what they're doing in the art. But I say you can do both. You can do all of those things. You can present well, you can dress well, you can be sharp, and you can still be a dope, talented, lyrical artist. You don't have to sacrifice any of these things for one or the other. I think Marlon with The Internet Killed the Neighborhood showcases that he's got the talent to take it there. He's got the scale. He's got the support. He's from New York. He's from the Mecca, and he is staying true to that sound. I don't think there was nothing in this album that suggested that he's got another play up his sleeve, that he's going to switch later and do any of those things. I think he's authentically hip hop, and for the last 5 years that I've been listening to him, he has stayed true to that. So I think it's a great project. I think you should definitely go hit play on that. The Internet Killed the Neighborhood. I think he speaks on a lot of things that we can all relate to, especially if you're a hip-hop fan, if you're a day one hip-hop fan that genuinely and authentically loves the culture and wants to see it continue to thrive, not within the confines of the evolution of that. This is not a project where you're going to hear these massively sounding productions like you get from a Kanye West. You're not going to get crazy lyrical double entendres and things like you get from like a Jay or something like that. This is really catching an artist at its early stages of his potential. And I think for any of us that are true hip hop fans, this is our favorite time to discover a new artist. The time where we can actually listen to him and say, wow, I've been listening to you since day one, and I've seen your growth, and I've seen where you came from, and it's incredible to see you here in the next 5-10 years. So make sure you go check it out. Marlon Craft, The Internet Killed the Neighborhood, available now everywhere. Rambo Hustle with the Hip Hop Report.